The NFL season might be a very long way from returning. It feels like it, at least. It's going to be like 4 months until we get real football again because, regular season counts, not preseason. But you know what you people don't need to wait for anymore? All three of us back on the show together, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back for another edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. We recorded earlier this week. We did a little bit of catch-up, finishing off the draft talk. That's done and dusted with the 2024 draft. Now we have to talk about the 2021 draft, but not about draft picks itself. We are talking about contracts. We're talking about fifth-year options. That is the meat and potatoes, as my good friend Bars would say, of the show today. But before we get to that, it's a full introduction once again. I'm so happy. Iceman Jerk bringing you all in, and we have the full crew back on the top of the screen with me, our games master himself, Justin. Justin, how are we doing?
Doing great. It's good to be back in force.
Yes. We have a full battalion this week. We are stronger than ever, ladies and gentlemen, here on the 105th episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. How do we make it to 105? And now the man at the bottom of the screen, he's recovering. He was apparently in Indiana a little over a week back at some point. Maybe he was in Paisano's pizza place when Ric Flair was going off too. I don't know. The man is everywhere around this great this great country. The Podfather himself, Mr. I can't say worldwide because all your remote shows have been in different states. So Mr. Nationwide, Podfather Rick.
I might have been hit in the head one too many times because I thought I did a hockey podcast at some point this week too. I don't remember if I did. I mean, I don't remember if I was, what shirt I was wearing or anything like that, or I barely remember my own name sometimes. So it's good that it's right there in the bottom tagline because, like Justin, my short-term memory is starting to go, when you're running around after a 6-month-old and you got all these other obligations and all these other things to keep up and directories to run and bodega guys to catch up with for strange sodas, yeah. I barely have a minute to breathe.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's the thing in life called living the dream. Rick is living a fever dream right now. So,
listen, thank God I don't have a fever because that would be really bad. But yes,
it would be. It would be considering child at home.
Yeah, not great, Bob.
So while Rick is ready to wrap up what has been clearly a ridiculous week for him, we move on, ladies and gentlemen, with the fun football and chaos here on your favorite NFL-based podcast programming itself. We're here, of course, as I said, we're going to talk about the fifth-year options of the 2021 draft class. We have all 32 players. Their options have either been picked up or declined because the deadline for the fifth-year options was a little over a week ago on May 2nd. So we're going to see who here has 2 years now properly and who here is on a last chance at potentially pretty good money. All things considered, those first-round rookie contracts are pretty solid, to say the very least. So we're going to be getting to that later in the show. But before we get to that, it's been a while since we had just a barrel of fun at the start. So, Podfather, you start us off. We've been told there's a mind-blowing fact. Well, there's plenty in the chamber, but we've been told there's a very special one this week. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I got a bone to pick with you, Jerg. I don't know what site you were looking at, but Dr. Pepper actually was used for indigestion back in the 1910s and 1920s.
Yeah.
So, and also the Dr. Pepper that you referenced, not the actual guy who Dr. Pepper was named after. He just happened to have the same name. So, but that's not where I'm going because I actually have a decent mind blowing fact, not one that's spiteful, even though that was very spiteful of myself here. So we just had the NFL draft, obviously, and now we're coming up to we had the NHL draft lottery, the NBA draft lottery is coming up. I'll mention that a little bit later on because I got something to say about that. And of course, the baseball draft's coming up a little later on in a few months or so. Back in 1973, boys, an interesting thing happened in that year. See, that was the year that Dave Winfield came out of college, out of the University of Minnesota, and he was the College World Series most valuable player as a pitcher, and would go on to have a legendary career in Major League Baseball and be a first ballot Hall of Famer back in 2001 with 85% of the votes. So Billy Wagner, you can do whatever you want with that because you got 5 votes short this year. But when it came time to have Dave Winfield drafted, supposed to say a lot of teams were calling for his services because of his baseball career. The San Diego Padres drafted him 4th overall in that year's draft. However, he was also a star for the Golden Gophers basketball team in Minnesota. And he was drafted in the 5th round of the NBA draft by the Atlanta Hawks. Now, back in the 70s, too, there was also a competing league. I'm sure you've heard of it, called the ABA. That was the Dr. Julius Erving League. Well, in the 6th round of the ABA draft in 73, the Utah Stars selected Dave Winfield as well. Now, the story goes that obviously he was picking baseball, but there's one little extra twist in the story here. 1973 NFL draft, in the 17th round, the Minnesota Vikings selected Dave Winfield. But here's the twist. He never played a down of college football. He was just that good of an athlete that the Vikings were like, you know what? Let's take a run on him too. So you hear of guys who are drafted by like 2 different teams nowadays. Well, very few. In fact, I think there's only 3 in modern sports history that were drafted in 4 leagues, along with George Carter and Mickey McCarthy. Dave Winfield was the most recent, probably the most famous guy to be drafted in the same year by 4 different teams across 4 different leagues. And obviously, as we know, he went on to play baseball because they drafted him highest, and B, that was the sport that he was the best at. Although you can ask the Seagulls in Toronto that he killed with a baseball if he was actually very good at it himself. I don't really know. But anyways, yes. So as we're going through, it would just be funny, if like all of a sudden somebody from the NFL draft, like Cooper DeJean, was drafted in the NHL draft by never playing a shift of hockey. And yet all of a sudden then in the NBA draft, he was like the 60th pick, used by some team instead of some Euro stash, and then in baseball, he was like in the 25th round or whatever it was. That's kind of like what that is today in a sense. Or I guess if you want to use the MLS draft too, if they played college football and college soccer, that kind of thing. Brandon Aubrey was a guy who was an MLS player who's now one of the best kickers in the league for the Cowboys. So it's just odd that you have like these multi-sport guys like Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, who got drafted in 2 different leagues. And again, there's your forerunner, Dave Winfield. 4 different teams drafted him in the same year. Everyone knew of his athletic prowess. So maybe he holds the credit to being the greatest athlete to play college sports because of just how beloved and revered he was across the pro leagues. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What a story! What a story! I mean, you hear the basic ones of who played the multiple sports with Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson, but to be drafted by multiple different sport leagues, 3 of the big 4 at the time, is quite. And you know what? Honestly, it's one of those things. This feels like something that is of the bygone era because it just doesn't. I don't think we're ever going to get that too often again, especially because the drafts now, like the NBA draft is only 2 rounds, and because of that, it has to be 2 nights apparently. The NFL draft is now only 7 rounds as opposed to, I'm sure it used to be 10 at some point. Same with the NHL draft. The NHL draft used to go 10, 11, 12 rounds. MLB draft still goes all the live long day if they so choose. Like the MLB draft basically ends when all 30 plus teams decide, yeah, okay, we're done here. So it's like MLB is probably the last one that could even do it for the heck of it. Like back in, what did he get drafted? Like 2014, 2015? Like it would have been funny in the 20th round for absolutely zero reason whatsoever if the Colorado Rockies would have also drafted Nikola Jokic.
Right.
Now he would be the best pitcher on that team, bar none.
Well,
at the current moment.
I mean, here's the problem with that. Did you see Zach Eady's first pitch the other day?
I did. Not great.
Tall guys might not be able to throw the ball with consistency. That's why you don't see a lot of 6'10" pitchers in baseball anymore. You see a lot of 6'9" guys who sell that product, but 6'10", 6'11", and above, a little difficult unless you use Randy Johnson.
Yeah. So, but no, it feels like one of those things that just of a different time and a time long gone, which sucks. It's one of those little novelties.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, whoever heard of the 17th round of the NFL draft, or the 5th round of the NBA draft? Like those things just don't exist anymore, So, and I've been baseball. Like Mike Piazza was in the 31st round. Like now they're shortened to 20. So, granted. By the time you get past round 5, no one cares and no one's watching anymore. But I mean, it's still something.
I was actually having this conversation because I was like having edits and stuff during the NFL draft, and I had to edit on the night of of day 3, right? And me and my editor were just waiting for feedback, and we have the draft on, and he's just looking at like the picks going by, and he's like, he looks at the crowd, he's like, why? And I just look at him like, what's up? He's like, why are they there? Like, they don't know any of these people.
I mean, no offense to the city, but what else is there to do in Detroit on a Saturday afternoon in April?
I've always said, I told him, not always said, I told him then and there. It's like if me and like a group of friends, which would likely include the two of you, went to an NFL draft, I don't see us being there the third day. I could see us being there the first 2 nights and then using night 3 of the draft to go around the city way more. But I just wouldn't see us being there for all 3 nights. Like going to the draft the third night.
Well, obviously, my idea would be night one we would do a live hit from the draft, like with our podcast, like reacting, and then 2 we'd watch it as fans, and 3, if we're there, it's because we slept over on the floor of the draft room and just forgot where we were, basically hangover style, So
that would be fun. The day we actually get credit. Imagine we ever get credited to actually go to the draft. That would be funny.
I mean, we could apply. Why not?
Yeah, we'd probably get declined.
But you never know until you apply. It's like when I got declined for the NBA draft. You never know until you apply.
Wait, when did you apply for Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Hey, Lord. Why not? All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we go on from one game. We go to the next. That was first off, fantastic mind-blowing fact there, Rick, as always. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have an addition. I think it's like the second or third time we're playing this game. This debuted late last season, I believe. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a round of Name That Player, where Justin will give us, I forget how many we did. Was it, you gave us 3 rounds of hints, Justin? Yes. So Justin will give us 3 rounds of hints on a player. Both Rick and I will, I think, each get a guess each round to decide, or to see if we can get this player as quickly as possible. So 6 total guesses for us to name a player based off of various hints, information, etc. that Justin is about to give us. So Justin, let's begin.
All right, guys. We're going to start with a hometown. Born in North Carolina. I'm not going to give you too much detail. This running back was a world-class hurdler in high school.
North Carolina running backs. I don't know where any of these guys are born.
I was going to say my track and field prowess isn't exactly what it once was.
Rick, you need to know everything about all Division 1, 2, and 3 sports. That was your job here.
No. See. I know more about the NAIA, but Division 3 track and field's a little sketchy for me. So you gotta give me a break on that end. All right, let's put us on the board. I don't know if he's North Carolina or not, but let's put us on the board here with Marshall Faulk.
No.
See, track and field. North Carolina born. I'm trying to think if there are any current running backs who I can imagine doing track and field. Which I say that probably a majority of them. You know what? I don't see. This is the thing. I don't know where any of these guys are born. I'll just throw out a name to be funny. Miles Sanders.
Ooh.
It's a good pick, but no, that's not.
Was he born in North Carolina or ran track and field in college or high school?
No, actually, technically, this person grew up in North Carolina. They were born in Maryland.
Okay. I see. Okay, that's fair.
All right, so we each had our first guess. So next round.
All right, only a 4-star recruit out of high school. He eventually went on to play for the Georgia Bulldogs in college and was drafted as a top 10 pick.
Georgia Bulldog running back drafted with a top 10. Oh, wait. Hold on. Oh, wait, but was he a top 10 pick, though?
Who are you thinking?
Because I'm thinking of Georgia running backs. So I like for me, Georgia running backs are more recent in terms of somewhat notable ones. So you have Nick Chubb, but he wasn't a first-round pick, so I know that. Sonny Michel, but he wasn't a top 10 pick, but I think he was late first round.
Yeah.
You have some kids in recent years. Buffalo, the Bills have the kid
Cook,
but he was not a first round pick.
No.
So the guy, and this is why I'm like, was he a top 10 pick? Excuse me, Todd Gurley. In terms of recent Georgia running backs,
he might have been late top 10. He might have been 9th or 10th, I think. But Yeah, I think he could have been.
That'll be my first. That'll be my guess this round. Todd Gurley.
All right. Not even making it to round 3. Todd Gurley, born out of Maryland. He was a world-class hurdler and sprinter for his school's track and field team. He competed for Team USA in the 110-meter hurdles and at the 2011 World Youth Championships in athletics. Again, the next hint would have been that he was the Offensive Player of the Year in 2017, Rookie of the Year in 2015, and made 3 Pro Bowls, appearing in 1 Super Bowl in his career for the St. Louis Rams at the time.
They were LA.
They also
LA
became,
already.
He started in St. Louis.
Yep.
I think they were St. Louis for his rookie year.
Yeah.
And either year 2 or year 3 they had moved to LA.
See, all you had to do was give me the he owned the beast of fan control football, and I said, oh, Todd Gurley, obviously, See, I know my arena football stuff. But you throw track and field in there. I don't know a javelin from a baton, man. Come on.
Well, that's the point. You got to start off a little bit obscure, and then you get closer to the hint as you go.
Dude, it saddens me so much that we didn't get more of Todd Gurley.
Well,
I can't say best because I grew up with Adrian Peterson. But I think for a stretch,
he was very dominant.
I can't think of too many running backs in the modern era that deserve to be up there with him. Just for a stretch of Offensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year and even though he didn't win an award for it, the season where the Rams went to the Super Bowl, he got injured late in the season. He was having an amazing camp. For like a 4 or 5 year stretch, he was probably the best running back in football. And if you didn't consider him the best, he was number 2 at worst. Like he was that dude. He was that dude.
Yeah. And that sucks the injuries got to him. The knees were the big problem for him. Yeah.
And I remember at the time, it felt like they didn't know what the issue was. Like every single report was like, "Oh, he's hurt. It's this," but they don't know. Like me, who doesn't know medical backgrounds whatsoever, I'm like, how? But that's just the unfortunate thing with science. Sometimes it ends up like that. So, but as I grieve the career of Todd Gurley, we got it on round 2 of Name That Player. Rick, let's go.
Yeah, you can grieve that all you want. This man's made a lot of money, so I'm not grieving for anything. I've got a bad back. He's got a bad knee. Give me a break.
Oh man. So that is another game of Name That Player gone. We I think we've only done running back so far, funny enough. So can't wait.
Only
for the
been
first
2. So
well, Justin's trying to make sure that we remember that running back's an actual position in this league because that's what he's doing. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. So that being said, another fun round of Name That Player gone. And guys, don't worry, we will have more Name That Player. It'll what's the word I'm thinking? It'll join the rotation of the games that we have here, and the games will be coming back here in short order. Don't worry. Well, we're probably going to end up having a podcast or 2 over the next 7-8 weeks before we get to our division previews. We're probably going to have 1 or 2 that's strictly just us playing games just for fun, just to catch up, which honestly I wouldn't mind at all. It could be just the fun and games podcast.
Yeah. Well, instead of Justin, and you and me, Jer, trying to guess Justin's question, it'll be you versus me in a Justin trivia matchup. So
perhaps I'm saying this right now. I'm losing that. I do not have the far back knowledge that Rick does.
Justin, brush up on your F1. That way you can give Jer a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Rick is just immediately going to throw out 1 of 3 names every time, and the thing is, he might get it right.
Capaldi, Alonso, Raikkonen, Schumacher, yada yada yada. Yeah.
If Rick just throws out one of the notable names, there's like a 25% chance he gets it right most of the time.
66.6% chance.
You have a 66.6% chance compared to my 35% chance. But you have no chance, so that gives me. All right. So our Steiner mathematics out the way. Justin, fun round there. Can't wait for the next round of games that we'll have next week and the weeks to follow. But before we continue, ladies and gentlemen, to the main crux of the show, of course, and we're about to get into the 5th-year options. We do have a little clip to play for the beautiful people. It returned earlier this week and is back once again in short order. We asked the question, where does he get this from? So it's confirmed that he gets this from a guy. Now, I didn't watch the rest of this episode, so I don't know what drink he is sampling here. But we have another episode of First Expressions, ladies and gentlemen. So we will see what he tried.
Well, after it came back and apparently was such a joy for you two to behold, I decided that, let's go back to my guy. Because, yes, I've got a guy, obviously. And let's see what else he's got for me in terms of the weird sodas for expressions. And he gave me a twofer today. So you're going to get a twofer as well today. Congratulations. If you know Mountain Dew, you know Mountain Dew Baja Blast, which has featured at Taco Bell for the longest time and only every so often comes into the bottle and can format. I think this is the 20th anniversary of Baja Blast. And the reason why I'm not doing a Baja Blast expression is because I've had a copious amount of Baja Blast in my lifetime. Probably one of my favorite flavored offshoots of a soda that I've had. Well, today we're going to try two others because Baja Blast and Mountain Dew, they've come out with a couple new ones. So this first one we're going to try is called Baja Point Break Punch, and it says tropical punch flavor. It is a pink soda, and I mean, look, tropical punch flavors, Mountain Dew, look, all the Mountain Dews that you can think of, Mountain Dew Code Red, Mountain Dew Voltage. A tropical punch flavor might be the most interesting one. I think this one's going to be the best of the two because I'm not looking forward to that other one, let me tell you. But let me just, okay, so you got a little fruit punchy type of smell to it for the first one. So let's give this one a try. Point Blank Punch. And unfortunately, it doesn't really taste like much of anything, which really sucks because that smell came off really good. But honestly, the aftertaste I get is like flavored water almost. So that's disappointing because I thought that would be a little better than it actually was. But, whatever. And now I'll get to the second one. Baja Laguna Lemonade, which is Mountain Dew with mango lemonade flavor. Oh boy. Mango and I don't have a very good history together, unfortunately. One of my daughter's favorite fruits now that she's, eating fruit now, so that's a positive for her. But, mango and me, not really a big fan of it. So, here's the Mountain Dew mango. And, I mean, it kind of smells almost like a honey butterscotch, which is very weird. I don't really know what to make of that, but Baja Laguna Lemonade. So Tropical Punch was a bust. Let's see what Laguna Lemonade is. Here we go. Oh, no! Oh. Okay. Yeah, like I said, not looking forward to that one. That was the worst one of all of them. It turned sour for some reason, and it's good. It's a good date, but I mean, Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the regular Baja Blast. I'm gonna go to Taco Bell actually get some Baja Blast now because that's really what I want instead. So we'll just do that. I did actually end up going back to Taco Bell. It was actually quite nice afterwards to have the original Baja Blast after the fact. So,
Sounds
so the second episode this week of First Expressions. I gotta say, this might actually surprise you both because these two and most people that know me know that I love Mountain Dew. It is my number one soda. If I had to write down a list of top 3 ways I would prefer to leave this earth, you could drown my body in Mountain Dew and I'd be cool with it.
Well, all right. Well, that's a good plan. Let's off jerk with Mountain Dew. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now maybe all the Mountain Dew I've drank in my life will probably off me one day. That's also a real possibility.
Yeah.
That being said, though, here's the thing. I am stubborn in my ways. I have only ever had the OG Mountain Dew. Mm-hmm. I've never had any of the offshoot flavors. Because I believe in that crap. I believe in the OG, the one and only, the top one, the tribal chief of the Mountain Dew in God mode itself. Now, but the second one nearly choked this man, I guess.
Yeah.
The first one, I would be willing to try the first one to see if maybe I can taste the flavor from it. Because it's a little disappointing to hear that Rick didn't get an exact flavor from it. But I'm willing to try the first one of the two that you had there if I can find it near me.
Well, you expect a fruit punchy flavor to kind of have a little bit of an after kick almost, sort of thing. But yeah, it literally came out flat. And it was, you heard the crack open of the cap. It was definitely carbonated. So it just came out flat at the end of that. So,
right.
But yeah, I mean, look, and it's funny, there are 3 7-Eleven locations around where I work. And only one of them, which was my guy, has the random sodas. The other 2 are just stick to what is normal. But this
Six,
guy knows that I like to frequent his location to make sure that I try some random stuff every so often. I saw a cherry lime Sprite the other day too, which was interesting. So
Ooh.
yeah, that might
That's a future one.
that might come back next week. Yeah, but Mountain Dew to your point, Jake. I mean, the first time I had Code Red, I was in love. Code Red was just amazing to me. And then Baja Blast and Taco Bell is just, it has to come from Taco Bell though, because the bottles and the cans for whatever reason doesn't translate well. It's got to come. You know how like when you go to McDonald's, if you haven't been in a while, like the Coke tastes so different from any other Coca-Cola that you ever have. It's kind of like that. Like they do something different with the Baja Blast at Taco Bell that makes it just better.
It's also, and I don't think I'm the only one because I've definitely seen this. Like the different kinds of orange sodas, like there's Fanta, there's Sunkist, there's freaking
Crush.
Like all of those taste better coming from a specific like container.
Yes.
Like I think I could be wrong maybe, but I think Sunkist tastes better from the bottle, Fanta from the can, and Crush. I don't know, maybe as like a cup soft drink or whatever.
No, for me, Fanta's better from the soda machine, from the tap. Crush is better from the bottle because that's really all you can find it in is the bottle. And Sunkist is better in the can.
Yep, you're right. It's honestly that's the trio right there. I agree actually. So it's stuff like that. Add this to the list of future episodes that we may or may never get to. Soda, just pure soda for an episode.
Good Lord,
we'll give the people a sugar rush. To say the very least. Then again, I think the Podfather is giving himself a sugar rush.
I'm still recovering from that Dr. Pepper coconut, man. That was awful. That was an awful experience. But I do it because it's the content, and I do it solely to watch Justin fall out of frame in laughter because that's the highlight of my day.
That face was
yeah.
So one last question before we move on here, Rick, because you mentioned it. So you've had bad experiences so far, either bad or neutral experiences so far, neutral at best, when it comes to mango flavors in any of these drinks. And you mentioned your daughter's starting to have more fruit. What are you going to do? Let's give it like 2 or 3 years as she grows up. What are you going to do if she decides her favorite fruit in the world is mango?
Okay, listen, she had them this morning and she was fine. So listen, I'm hoping against hope that my daughter is the opposite of me when it comes to like foods when I was a kid, because I was the pickiest eater in the world when I was a child. So I'm hoping that she kind of develops that palate a little bit more, and I can actually cook a little bit more different things that we should try and stuff. Because now that I'm older, I'm getting more of a spice palette. I'm getting more into like different like Cajun, Indian, garam masala, gochujang, all that sort of thing. I'm kind of experiencing what I've been missing. So I'm hoping that she kind of comes into that world now and really starts to develop that. Look, if I got to make a mango chutney for her, no problem. I'll do that. Like, mango in itself is probably fine, but you know what it is? It's like the fakey flavor of mango almost. I think they can't really bottle it. I think that's the problem. Like maybe I need to stop on like the Bell Parkway service road and actually open my window and grab the mango from the person who's walking on the service road, and with the flowers and all that sort of thing. Get the mango flavor back into me. Maybe I'll do that. So
there we are. So mango soda and all that aside, that ends the fun portion of the show. I mean, we're still gonna have fun, but that ends the pure fun in games, and we'll see what we have in store for next week and many weeks beyond that. So time for the main course of the show, ladies and gentlemen. The fifth-year options of the 2021 draft class. Man, these guys have been in the league for 3 years already. COVID really screws things up, eh? So this draft class, one of the notable ones, of course, because it was coming off the heels of, some of these kids played in 2018, some of them played in 2019, some pretty good seasons of college football. And then there was 2020. And that to say the very least, it made things interesting because some of these kids that were picked in the first round opted not to play in that 2020 season. So we get to see how some of their careers played out. 2 of them, I think in particular, stick out to me. If there are any that didn't play that year that did get, I should say 3 of them in particular stand out. If there are any that we're going to quickly go over here that did opt out of that season, please inform me, boys, because like I said, 3 immediately come to mind, which are Trey Lance, Jamar Chase, and Gregory Rousseau, who was picked late in the first round by the Buffalo Bills. So those are the immediate 3 names that come to mind in terms of the first round picks in this class. But this has been, so I was looking very briefly before starting the show because, every once in a while, some research actually has to be done. And so far from the 2021 draft class, 9 Pro Bowlers so far. 9 of these guys have already made a Pro Bowl. And then there's a couple other solid players in this draft class that haven't made a Pro Bowl yet in their career, such as Jalen Waddle, which we know I believe he set the rookie receptions record his rookie season. So there's still a couple good names in this class. Just again, strictly speaking, first round that haven't technically gotten one of those written down achievements, all Pro Bowl, whatever. but are still very good players in this league. So this is, I think, for all intents and purposes, a very good draft class, which is very, I think NFL has more of a unique aspect of it because these kids, it almost feels like they're forced to play, whereas first rounders in all the other sports maybe the NBA is being the exception, but in the NHL, some of the first round picks in 3 years back, maybe they haven't even played in the league yet, or maybe they just played their rookie season. Or in the MLB, those kids might just be debuting this year in 2024. NFL and NBA are kind of the more unique ones where it's like guaranteed first round draft pick, they're playing right away. Yeah. Whereas in the other sports, it could be 50-50. So we have a good idea of how good. We have an idea of how good some of these players are so far and how bad they are. So we're going to quickly go through the list of these 32 selections, and we're going to see who got their fifth-year option picked up and just give our thoughts on all of it real quick. So let's not waste any time. Let us go at the very top of the draft down to the bottom. Trevor Lawrence, guys, not a shock whatsoever. He got his fifth-year option picked up on late April 29th. It is over $25 million was his specific one. And the fifth-year options depend on a number of factors. The biggest one, of course, being the position. Well, we know which position's getting the highest one. But there's also, like, to an extent, there are some achievements tied into it as well, I think, in terms of Pro Bowl selections, playing time, certain other things that make it up. Because Trevor Lawrence had a higher fifth-year option as the quarterback compared to Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, who, don't know if this is a spoiler, they're not as good as Trevor Lawrence and haven't done as much. So there that is. But I don't think there's too much to deliberate here on this one. Got his fifth-year option picked up. We know the Jags are going to hammer out that contract extension, if not later in this offseason, at some point over the next calendar year. Trevor Lawrence has been the franchise quarterback of the Jags so far. It's fair if you want to point out 2023 wasn't as strong of a year compared to 2022, but I think there's certain things you could point to as to how that year didn't work out. And I think for all intents and purposes, he's going to be the guy in Jacksonville going forward. So
it just proves a point that Adam Gase should not have won that game back in 2020, because then the Jets would have had Trevor Lawrence instead of the guy they took after him. Because, yeah, Trevor Lawrence, even though, like you said, the last year was a bit of a down year for him, the Jags kind of underperformed. He's still a very good quarterback in this league. He's still one of the top ambassadors of the position in this league. And I think any team would be happy to have him. The Jaguars are just fortunate to do so. So, but yeah, I don't see this being a shock or a surprise in any way.
I totally agree. I mean, you guys pretty much said it. He was the best pick in the draft. He's the best quarterback in the draft, and he's gonna stay at Jacksonville Jaguar for at least a few more years.
Yeah. Over 4,000 passing yards each of the last two seasons. A little over 20 touchdowns each of the last 2 years. Has to cut down on the interceptions a little bit, but I'm sure if now entering year 3 with Doug Peterson, which kind of a make or break year when it comes to some certain head coaches, it's going to be a time to see how they get everything together down there in Duval as they try to take the reins back in the AFC South, competing against the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud versus Trevor Lawrence is going to be fun to watch over the next couple of years. So let's move on. I'm going to kind of pair these guys together because, they both got their options declined at this point. Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Look, these two both ended up being traded by their teams, funny enough. Both, like I said, quarterbacks, even without the same achievements as Lawrence, would have been just over $22 million for fifth-year options. Neither of these guys is going to be worth that, obviously, between Lance and Wilson. So both find themselves in backup situations, one now traded to the Denver Broncos and one traded last year to the Dallas Cowboys. As of now, and I have to say as of now, probably just backup status going forward in this league. High draft picks in all leagues always get second, third, and fourth chances that later round picks don't get. I can see both of these guys after this year, even if it's not with their current teams, I still see them being able to hang around the league for a bit as backups. And if there's ever anything more for them, who knows? Maybe, but we're seeing it in recent years, some backup quarterbacks, there's longevity in that. And every once in a while, these guys get opportunities and some spots start. So these two could become that at best, but they're never going to be, I don't think they're ever going to be worth where they were drafted, which is second and third overall. So.
Look, I think they're both number 3s on their respective depth charts this year because Dallas obviously still has Prescott. I think they still have Cooper Rush, so he's clearly the number 2, yep. And Trey Lance is number 3. And it just proves a point that the Niners did so much with such a little sample because they traded up a bevy of picks
Yep.
to move up to number 3 and get Trey Lance, who only played one game in the 2020 season. And, did he have an excellent 2019? Sure, but that was 2019, not 2020. So you couldn't go from that to like, oh, we're going to get him for this year. And Zach Wilson, it's the same case. I don't see him beating out Bo Nix or Jarrett Stidham for that starting spot in Denver. I don't. Maybe being a little closer to where he was at BYU could help him a little bit, but this is the problem when you take quarterbacks this high because it is for lack of a better term, it is definitely a boomer bust position. And, when you draft a quarterback that high and it stinks, that resets your clock further. The Niners got lucky because, again, who knew that Brock Purdy was going to be the savior that he has become? And maybe he should have been drafted 3rd instead of Trey Lance. But, for the Jets, how long has it taken Justin and my team, and I can say that now as a born-again Jets fan, I like to say, how long has it taken our team to come back and rid ourselves of the stench that was the Zach Wilson drafting? At the very beginning, I think we accepted it because we needed a quarterback. Our team did. And the Jets weren't good, but at least they were trying. And at least Zach Wilson was a rookie, and he was making rookie mistakes. And it was like, okay, but maybe in his sophomore year, he'll get a little bit better. And when you got benched for Chris Streveler, that's the ultimate nail in the coffin in your career. I'm sorry. And again, look back at 2022 when the Jets mismanaged him so badly that they told him 1 week, take some time off and go read a book, and then in week 18, no, you're the backup quarterback. Put the book down and come back and be on the sideline in case Flacco gets hurt or in case, all that, Tim Boyle gets hurt or whatever it was. Ridiculous. Like, none of those guys stood a chance after the initial failures. And Trey Lance, again, he was just bitten by the injury bug one too many times. And that's kind of why, and again, supplanted by Mr. Irrelevant. There's no coming back from that, I think.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of something we all expected. It was a major trade, and we could discuss the ramifications of that trade later. But Trey Lance to the 49ers was always a question mark. It was a guy that didn't have a ton of playing experience in college. When they drafted him, he hadn't played in 2 years. And I know part of that is COVID, not necessarily his fault, but he had one good Division II season in which he was incredibly accurate, and then he came to the NFL. And I mean, did he have injury concerns in college too?
Yeah, there were a few
things. And then it was COVID.
Yeah, there were a few things.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, the kid has talent. There's no saying that he doesn't, but there's a lot that they need to develop first. So arguably one of the all-time reaches in the NFL, and obviously it didn't work out. And the same thing for Zach Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson, while he was great in college, there's something about going to the Jets that makes you an automatic bust at quarterback. And people will say that his level of competition and the players he was playing with weren't as good, and that's why he got drafted so high, because he had the physical talents, and they thought he could do something with more talent around him. The Jets never drafted a quarterback that I've ever seen develop, so who knows? But yeah, I mean, the kid's going to get a fresh start in Denver now, and look, maybe he can carve out a solid backup role. We don't know what's going to happen with Bo Nix because a lot of people thought Bo Nix was a reach. I could see him beating out Jarrett Stidham, but we'll see. There's a lot of question marks at the quarterback position in Denver at the moment, and it's going to be interesting to see which direction Sean Payton takes him.
I could just imagine a 75-year-old Denver Broncos fan looking at his team now and saying that my 3 quarterbacks are named Bo, Zach, and Jarrett. It just doesn't sound right.
Really quick gut reaction. If you had to guess one of these guys sticks around the league longer than the other, who would you put your money on?
Zach Wilson.
Trey Lance.
Okay.
I think Trey Lance is a little more mobile, and I think that's a little more inviting to some teams. Like I think Zach Wilson just has that aura about him that I think that is like a little stay away from. But Trey Lance, because I think Trey Lance, if in the right system or in the right setup, he could become like a bit more of a gadget type of player. I think almost like a Brad Smith, where he was such a good quarterback in college, but then became a better wide receiver in the NFL, something along those lines. Like he's a guy that I think could try that, but Zach Wilson is strictly a quarterback. Lance could find himself in a different position here or there on a different team.
All right. I was going to disagree with you, but I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. I don't think that he's more mobile of a quarterback, because you got to remember Zach Wilson has made some very athletic plays, surprisingly athletic plays in this league, and a lot of them were with his legs and not necessarily with his arm. But yeah, I mean, if you want to make the argument that Trey Lance might play another position, I mean, I don't think that's going to be the case, but you never know. And to be fair, I mean, he could barely take hits at quarterback, so I'm not really sure what other position he's going to start at, and then all of a sudden, not take some hits at.
He could be the best damn holder in the league.
Yeah, not a lot of positions that you're not going to take hits.
Sure.
All right, there's that. We move on from those three, the top three off the board. Let's go to the fourth pick from that draft, and Dustin, I'll throw it to you first. Kyle Pitts, his option was exercised by the Falcons. So, hot start to his career, kind of slowed down. What do you think?
Kyle Pitts is an interesting selection because he's a guy that, like you said, he had huge expectations coming into the league. He was the highest ever drafted tight end. He's an athletic freak. He's got the ideal body type. He can do it all. And then he kind of was just very quiet for the Falcons. And part of that, I think, had to do with the fact that they needed him to block later into his rookie contract. And the coaching, but we can discuss that again at another time because we have discussed that at length. But yeah, they didn't really use him right, and he never really had a quarterback there. And it's not that he didn't play well, it's that it was just disappointing from what they expected him to be. So it's interesting now with a new head coach and arguably a top 15 quarterback coming in. Even though he's coming off his Achilles surgery, he's still, his last time we saw him on the field, he was pretty great. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does this year. I understand why they would exercise that option. They're going to give him another 2 years to really figure it out. And worst comes to worst, they don't re-sign him after year 5. But it is the correct move in my mind.
Rick?
I don't disagree with it. Yeah, it's so weird when you have a guy who is drafted so high like he was, and yet even though he was a Pro Bowl guy in his first season, he only caught 1 touchdown pass against the Jets in England. Like, it's so weird. But again, that the way he was used in that offense under that former head coach, now offensive coordinator of the Steelers, super questionable. And I think maybe he'll flourish under Kirk Cousins. I think Cousins knows how to use a tight end in the route running very well. Look at how Hawkinson was when he went to Minnesota a couple of years ago. He became a favorite target after Jefferson. So I think that if Kirk Cousins is there, and still listen, because the Falcons, whatever they did at the first round of the draft with Michael Penix, who the hell knows what they're thinking. But the other thing too is that, like you said, this is based upon position, not about salary. So picking up this option was only about $11 million.
Yeah,
that's manageable for the Falcons. Again, when you have coming up in the next couple of years, you have options for Drake London and for Bijan Robinson, who will probably, Bijan maybe not, but Drake London will command a lot more money, I think. It's manageable, and it kind of assuages that cap move. Because again, if you look at their tight end room after Kyle Pitts, not very good. It's Tucker Fisk, who no one can pick out of a lineup. John Fitzpatrick, who for some reason has the P in his last name capitalized, so it's Fitzpatrick. Like, why? And then Charlie Werner, who I guess is okay, but again, who else do you got?
Yeah, it's something to say at the very least. No, I'm with you guys. I think it was a smart thing. Obviously, I think for these next couple of names, it's obviously going to be the smart move to have done so. And I think that for Kyle Pitts especially, this is they picked this up. I almost view it to an extent now. I forget what the case was, what the Packers did with Jordan Love, but basically, I think 2024 is kind of like this prove it year for Kyle Pitts of like, hey, like first year was great. Last 2 years, apparently he's in the he who shall not be named category according to Rick. But he's not here anymore. You have a new coach, new quarterback. And if you could get the stats back up, and if they could stop giving the kid Julio Jones syndrome and give him some touchdowns along with all those yards, because that started to happen to Julio in some of his last seasons, he could get something. So we'll see. And like you mentioned, Rick, just under $11 million of the cap hit. If you have a 1,000 yard potential tight end at an $11 million cap hit, or even less than that for the next 2 years, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good considering what some of these tight ends are getting paid. So
Yep.
This has high upside for the Atlanta Falcons. I think this is a low risk move for them in regard for that. And hey, if he performs well, like awesome, then you just pay him. You know? So there's that. A couple receivers here coming up with the 5th and 6th overall picks. Jamar Chase for the Cincinnati Bengals and Jalen Waddle for the Miami Dolphins. Both players with their 5th-year options extended. I think this is more of a interesting thing of Chase hasn't gotten his contract extension yet because neither of guys have gotten a contract extension yet, obviously because the 5th-year option just got picked up, to be fair. But I feel like part of that is because different reasons for both of them, but that kind of go back to a similar thing. So Joe Burrow was paid last year. Now that the Bengals have paid their quarterback, they need to figure out the rest of the roster. Well, with figuring out the rest of the roster, who else are you going to have to pay? Because hint, quarterbacks aren't the only ones that get second contracts. So Jamar Chase, we know he's projected to get what is going to be in theory, record-breaking contract before Justin Jefferson then supersedes it at some point. But at least for a very brief period of time, Jamar Chase will become the highest paid receiver in the league. This is going to potentially cost the Bengals T. Higgins. But I'm sure what they're trying to do, they're trying to play the cap game of how much money can we get to Chase? How can we structure this so that maybe not necessarily T. Higgins, but the other pieces on this team that might be due in the next couple of years, they try to figure out that in the fold, correct? Whereas I think with the Miami Dolphins, it is the idea of they haven't paid Jalen Waddle yet because they haven't paid Tua yet. And I think they still need to figure out if they want to pay Tua yet. So I think it's, again, goes back to the similar patient zero of it has to do with the quarterback, but it's two different things. One team has paid the quarterback. They're going to pay the wide receiver. I don't doubt in my mind that the Bengals are going to pay Jamar Chase. They just need to figure out other aspects of the team. Like, what can we do if we do that? You know, there's some juggling to do that. Whereas the Dolphins, they don't even know if they want to pay their quarterback. So it's kind of there. So, Rick, I'll throw it to you first. The case with these two wide receivers, and I'm expecting Chase to get his contract first only because I think the situation is a lot more clear-cut for him to get that contract compared to Jalen Waddle. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think what hurts is that the Bengals paid Burrow so much money that they may not have as much room to work with. But they franchised T. Higgins, which we all knew was going to happen, and he's not happy about it, which we all knew was going to happen. But look, Jamar Chase has been a 1,000-yard plus receiver for the last 3 seasons. His first 3 seasons in the NFL, he's been a 1,000-yard plus receiver. He's a guy who commanded that money and deserved it. And so, yeah, I think that is the plan moving forward. Is you're going to pay him. Not having Joe Mixon, I think, helps too, because again, that's the deal that you can restructure that money around here or there. And if you're Joe Burrow, look, you can probably find a way to do what Mahomes has done and like restructure your deal so that it kind of defers a little bit back further, so that they can keep Jamar Chase because you want to keep your top target. Because otherwise, you know, they don't really have another number 2 wide receiver right now. I know they drafted a guy, Jermaine Burton, in the 3rd round this year, but like he's not proven yet. So you gotta get ready on that end. With the Dolphins, it is a little sketchier because again, they have so many players on both sides of the ball that are going to command a lot of money at some point. And so that's more the chess game, I think, for Miami, is that, you know, do you trust in Tua enough? Or if he's got one more rough season or one more injury-riddled season, do you draft a quarterback and try and give him, you know, the reins because, you know, you can't trust Tua to stay on the field that much? Do you trust Tyreek to, you know, stick around for a few more years? But are you sure about that? What about on defense? Do you trust Chubb? You know, you lost – who'd they lose? They lost Christian Wilkins, I think, right? He's gone. Yep. So their defense is getting a little muddled, you know, and all of that. So the Dolphins have a little more confusion for me. And you know what? We still have not seen, whereas I think we've seen the best of Jamar Chase and it's still to come, we're still really waiting for Jalen Waddle to really break out and become that guy because, you know, he had, I think, a decent first season with the Dolphins, but you're still kind of, and even last year, you know, 72 for 1,014, okay, you know, fine. And then, you know, the year prior, 75. Like last year he got hurt a little bit. So you're still hoping that like he's not banged up. but you're waiting for him to take that next step and become that lethal threat that a Justin Jefferson is. He's not quite there yet. And in order to pay him more money, I think this year they have to see the 1,500-yard season of Jalen Waddle potential come in. Because otherwise they're going to be a little hesitant to pay the man. And I think that could hurt them in the long run there.
Hey, real quick, Justin, before you go, I do want to point out one more thing between these two guys that I think also matters. Postseason and showing up in the postseason. Jamar Chase in his career so far in the postseason, 588 yards over 7 games. Jalen Waddle in 2 postseason games, 75 yards. Jalen Waddle hasn't showed up in the postseason so far.
Well, here's the excuse for that from Miami before Justin goes. Year 1, it was Skylar Thompson throwing the ball. So so he could throw it to a freaking Dolphins mascot, and he still wouldn't find him on the sideline. And number 2, that game was really cold, and Kansas City was just running the offense completely. So I guess you can understand that if you're using those excuses. But yeah, the production's not there for Waddle in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, look, you wanna say that you should be able to make those plays regardless of your quarterback, but I do think there are some built-in excuses for that. I think Waddle is definitely worth the option, and there's been a few question marks about him. Mostly, I think those question marks are health, and I understand you have to pay Tua first, but in theory, Tua is what he is because they have A, Tyreek Hill, and B, Jalen Waddle. What were they? The first combo duo to have 1,000 yards each in ever? Was it the first ever?
I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Look, they're both excellent receivers. They do different things. Waddle is a little bit more up and down, while Tyreek Hill is more of a consistent threat. But he does play big in big spots when they really need him to come in. He's had good games. It's not fair to compare him to these other number 1 receivers because he hasn't been a number 1 receiver, really. I mean, he was what for a year, you want to argue he was their best receiver, but he wasn't the true number 1. It was Devontae Parker at the time, wasn't it? So you want to turn around and compare him maybe to a T. Higgins, then you have a more comparable thing. But I don't think it's fair to compare him to Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and other guys that were the top receivers on their team the entire time. With arguably better quarterback play, but I would argue against it for some of it. I mean, obviously I'm taking Burrow, but I'm not necessarily taking Cousins over Tua. So, yeah, I think it's the right move to exercise his option. We'll give him another year to try and get right. He has missed, unfortunately, a few games. I don't think he's played a complete season yet, which is scary good when you really consider his stats. But he's been a dependable player for them when he's on the field.
Yeah, no, I think you guys have brought up the key point, which is I think they're trying to figure out what they want to do with Tua before they make a decision on Waddle. Because if you're being realistic, if you are going to pay Tua, again, I don't think he's going to supersede any of the contracts we saw last year. I don't think he should be paid more than Lamar, Jalen, Herbert, or Burrow. So we're talking, and definitely not more than Mahomes. So I shouldn't say at worst. He should be the 6th highest paid quarterback in the league at most. Those 5 are clearly have shown levels above him in terms of comparative play. I think the only thing that's holding Waddle back, and I don't lump them together to compare them. I more so mean it's just easy to do because they're both wide receivers. But Waddle has shown consistency, and I think he is going to get paid once they figure out the future with Tua. I think it's just my point of view. If they pay Waddle and Tua doesn't have a contract, I don't think that spells well for Tua's long-term tenure there because you still have Tyreek Hill and other guys that you've paid on that team, right? So it's gonna be very interesting to say at the very least what's gonna happen there. And I think with the Bengals, you guys have already said it. Chase is gonna get paid. They just need to figure out the rest of the roster after that because T. Higgins isn't happy. Trey Hendrickson is also not happy, and he has been the best performer on that defense over the last 3 seasons in terms of pure production. And they have to. I think that they probably need to prioritize making him happy because behind him, I don't see a lot of consistent sack production there. They drafted a kid in the first round defensively last year. Miles Murphy barely saw the field in year 1. And the Bengals have done some decent developing on that team, to give them credit. But at some point, the development cycle needs to really kick into gear because now you've paid your quarterback. So there's that. 7th overall pick. This is probably going to be one of the quicker ones we talk about. Penei Sewell. Look, they picked up his 5th-year option, then immediately extended him on a multi-year deal. I don't really have too much to say. One of the best tackles in the game. Dude's a beast. Loved him coming out. I remember it was a conversation between him and Jamar Chase of who the Bengals should pick. Should they protect Burrow? Should they just give him a weapon? Shout out to my guy Stu, who to this day says it should have been Sewell over Chase for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's kept it consistent because he stands on business. Shout out to my guy Stu. But it's a home run of a sign of a draft pick and then a contract extension for the Lions. I don't have too much to say aside from that.
He also opted out of the 2020 season, believe it or not. Yep. So, yeah. But yeah, no, this is the right call to make. Especially with how the Lions are doing now. Right call.
Yep.
Yes.
Amazing analysis right there. All right, let's pair up another duo of guys right here. Let's go to defense here, boys. Talk some secondary pieces. J.C. Horn for the Carolina Panthers at the 8th overall pick, and Patrick Surtain II with the Denver Broncos with the 9th overall pick. Both guys drafted back-to-back. Both had their 5th-year options picked up. Looking at the prices of the 5th-year options real quick from what I am seeing, J.C. Horns is just over $12 million. And Patrick Surtain's, again, because of playing time and other performance-based stuff, $19.8 million for his 5th-year option. I think for Surtain, again, slam dunk. I won't say too much else about it. He's clearly their number one corner. The only reason to consider his long-term tenure in Denver is not because of talent. It's only probably because does he want to be there? Does he trust that team to make something of the situation? Or maybe they'll just pay him a bunch of money and be like, sure. So we'll see what that is. But, nothing about Surtain's future in Denver has to do with the talent nor availability. It just has to do with will he be cool with staying in Denver for the long term with the questionable performances that we might see out of the Broncos this upcoming season. So there's that. Whereas J.C. Horn, his second year in 2022, he showed some promise, had, I forget the exact number. It's below 10, but I think 9 pass deflections, had a handful of interceptions. But in his rookie year, he only played like 3 games, and last year he only played 4. He is one of the guys that have just been snake bitten with injuries for the Carolina Panthers defense over the last couple of years. So J.C. Horn, I don't want to say it was a mistake. I think with a $12 million for a starting corner, I think in the league now is almost going to become the average. So I don't hate it. But I think J.C. Horn is one of these guys where it's good that they picked up the option, but his long-term future there is in doubt because he's been injured early on in his career to where we've seen the flashes, we haven't seen it consistently, right? So that's where I'm leaning. Surtain is the slam dunk that they picked it up. J.C. Horn, I think, is the right move to pick it up, but now he needs to prove himself if he's going to be a Carolina Panther for the long term.
I hated Patrick Surtain's father growing up. He's on the Dolphins, man. And he was a badass cornerback. But I respect Surtain II because Denver's got a good history with corners. Champ Bailey is the guy who comes to mind almost immediately.
Yep.
And he deserves it. I think you're right. I think J.C. Horns is more of a loyalty to the team deal and a promise option. Like, we're going to give you this option, but you're going to be healthy for the whole season, right? And you're going to, do your job, right? Now, if it was any other owner, I would say that would feel like, taken care of. But this is David Tepper we're talking about. This is purely transactional. And so I think if J.C. Horn has a bad game, I don't want Tepper go down to the field and take care of him himself. Because that's just how bad of an owner this guy is. But yeah, I think you're right. Horns is kind of a now you got to make good on your investment sort of deal.
And also, before you go, Justin, and let me know if you agree with what I'm thinking here. I think part of the reason they picked it up is because if you're a top 10 pick in this league and you haven't done something incredibly dumb off the field to make you persona non grata, or B, have played at a low level, I think you're getting your 5th-year option picked up no matter what. J.C. Horn has shown he can play at a really good level and be a starting corner in this league. He just needs to be on the field more. Like I think would be Justin. Let me know if I'm wrong. I think we'd be criticizing the Panthers if they didn't pick up that 5th-year option.
Definitely, I think you're definitely correct. We would definitely be criticizing them. The question is, can he stay on the field? Because it's not even whether or not he can play. Because from what we've seen, kid can play. The issue is, can he stay on the field? Can he stay healthy? And can he build upon what he's already shown. I mean, in theory, he really hasn't even completed a rookie year yet because he hasn't played that many games. So, just there's not really much to analyze here. You just gotta cross your fingers and hope everything you've seen is the real deal, and you're giving him an extra year.
Yeah. Yep. And this is going to be a big year because for the jokes we might make about the NFC South and what that division is, there's some talented wide receivers in that division. There's some talented skill position players in that division. So JC Horn with this, I think the expectation is for him to be the number one corner there, and he's going to get that proven. He's going to get tested a lot, right? It's Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in Tampa. It is on the New Orleans Saints. Who is the number one? Oh, Chris Olave. He's going to get Chris Olave. And then with I'm stalling for time because the last
the Falcons.
The Falcons.
Drake London. Yep.
So he's going to get tested a lot there. All right. Next 2 picks. Ironically, well, one of these guys wasn't drafted by this team, but he is now in the state of Pennsylvania along with this other guy. So I'm going to group them together because it saves a slight bit of time. But Devontae Smith and Justin Fields. Devontae Smith was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles 10th overall. Option picked up upon him signing that 3-year extension that they gave him. I don't think there's too much for me to say there. This is the interesting one to an extent. Justin Fields. I'm not surprised that his 5th-year option didn't get picked up because looking at what prices would have been, it would have been an over $25 million cap hit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not really shocked to see that they didn't do that. So your guys' thoughts on the Devontae Smith deal, which, I mean, let's be real here, they were probably always going to do that no matter what. And then the Justin Fields situation with Pittsburgh, which again, I don't think any of us are surprised necessarily that they got the 5th-year option, but now this kind of makes it interesting because now it's a 1-year prove it for Justin Fields, who is also competing with a guy that's on a 1-year prove it. So both these guys, I don't know, can we play a game? Can we make it a half-season prove it for each other? I don't know. So we're going to see. But Justin, I'll throw it to you first on the Devontae Smith and the Justin Fields yes, no in terms of the 5th year.
Agreed. Yes and no is really the answer here. Again, Devontae Smith is one of those guys where he was kind of a number 1 for a short period of time, but realistically, he's a top tier number 2. He's a T. Higgins. He's a Jalen Waddle kind of guy. And maybe now that he's farther into his career, he is what it takes to be a number 1 in a different situation. But why would you want that different situation? It was an excellent move to extend him. The 5th-year option was an excellent move for them to extend him and sign him to a contract extension. Now they locked both him and A.J. Brown into long-term deals, and they're going to have a wide receiver core there for a long time. It's the right move. Howie Roseman is a good GM, and he knows what he's doing. And unfortunately, you got to trust him as a football guy. I don't know. He's still an Eagles guy, but and it's interesting because I feel like you could make the argument for Pittsburgh to say, hey, we got Russ on a 1-year deal. Why not keep him on a 2-year deal just in case? Worst comes to worst, you don't really get to test him this season. And now you're like, what do we do? Where are we next season? And at the same time, if it doesn't work out with Russ this year, you're probably going to draft a quarterback next year anyways. So do you want that money on your books? I could see it going either way. I understand why they didn't extend him. I don't know how much of the field he's going to see this year. It's a very, very interesting situation. At least at quarterback, there's rumors that he's going to be playing some other positions. That's interesting in my mind, but yeah, I don't know if I would take the money on my books if I was the Steelers. There's merit to either side of the argument, but in my mind, I think that they're trying to wipe the slate clean. If this Russ thing doesn't work out, it's highly unlikely Justin Fields would, and then they're back to the drawing board at the quarterback position.
Well, you're definitely also hopeful if Russ doesn't work out, you would hope to see that it doesn't work out quick enough to where then you could just test drive Fields. Like if Russell Wilson in the first 5 games only has like 4 touchdowns and 7 picks, Fields is getting in no matter what. So like you said, if the 5th-year option for quarterbacks could be sub $20 million, I think the Steelers would have actually maybe considered picking up the 5th-year option for him. But it's well over $20+ million. I don't think there was a shot there.
I have nothing to say on the Eagles because Devontae Smith, obviously, that was the right call to make here. But here's something that I will say for the Steelers, and keep this in mind when we go down talk about their other first round draft pick that they actually took. So the 5th-year option started after the 2011 NFL draft. The Steelers have only picked up 5 first-year options in their career in that time frame, and none since the 2017 draft, which was. And here are the 5 guys that they picked up: T.J. Watt, which you would; Bud Dupree, which you would; Ryan Shazier, which he was picked up before the injury happened to him. So, but before that, he was a star.
And had he never been hurt, it would have been well worth it.
David DeCastro, on the offensive line. And the first guy from the 2011 year was Cam Hayward. So that means that's 4 edge or linebackers and 1 offensive lineman. It is on brand for the Steelers not to exercise an option on a quarterback, a running back, or anybody else, any skill positions, really. So them not doing that with Justin Fields, I understand the logic behind it, but that's just not what they do. Like the logic behind it would have made sense. But again, Justin Fields is really on a make or break year here because even though he had a good run for the Bears in that last season, they didn't go to the playoffs. He was supplanted because the number 1 pick, which they owned, thanks Tepper, was a quarterback. So he was never going to survive. So,
I need to dispel this stuff that Justin Fields had a really good year last year.
He had a better year than the year prior, is more my side.
Like he didn't have that good of a year. He was healthier for longer, which means that his stats were longer, and he definitely had slight improvements. But let's face it, the kid could not win against real competition. They won on a winning streak late in the year against the teams that were sub 500, and they were pretty much out of it anyways. They were meaningless games. They haven't played a meaningful game in a while. And I'm not saying that that's Justin Fields' fault. I'm saying the Bears were devoid of talent, and he's not done anything. I mean, his QBR is comparable to Zach Wilson's.
He's also
touchdown to interception ratio.
Completion percentage is very poor. And like for the modern NFL, 61% doesn't do it anymore.
He's been okay. He's shown some talent and some ability, but that's it. There's like flashes of what we think could be a good quarterback, and that's why teams were willing to trade for him. It's the same reason that Denver was willing to trade for Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson had more of a case study in my mind, but that's it. They're not trading because they think that he's going to be the starter. They're trading because they think, all right, there's a chance that there's something here, and we're going to see if we can find it.
All I'm saying is that if the combination of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields has them at 9-8 again or 10-7 again, then Mike Tomlin's the damn wizard.
It really is. Yeah. I do. So I want to ask a quick question with regards to Justin Fields specifically here, boys. This is my thought. Do you guys think, let's say 10 games into the season, Wilson got benched and Fields is playing, let's say, fine. Would you think from the Pittsburgh perspective, could you see them giving him a 1-year extension, not for a high number, it obviously wouldn't be anywhere near what the 5th-year option would have been, maybe like a 1-year, let's say 5, 6, 7 mil with incentives based on performance, so that they have at least a quarterback who's been in the league for a bit going into 2025, it would still give them the flexibility to draft someone and maybe give the kid time if it's not ready. Because like Rick said, let's say they're a 10-win team again somehow, which at that point just give Mike Tomlin coach of the year. Yeah. If they're a 10-win team again, and if Fields plays well enough, you're not going to have a high enough draft pick unless you're going to be willing to trade up to get who's going to be considered one of the better quarterbacks in what the next draft class will be. Now, who those quarterbacks will be, TBD. I don't know off the top of my head. Like, I don't know if there's that next, you got to get this guy quarterback yet, but I haven't looked at the 2025 class yet, to be fully honest with you. So would you think maybe 10, 11 games in the season, if he's playing well enough, a 1-year extension is warranted for Fields, just so you have a body on that roster, no matter, and that way you still have the flexibility of, you could keep the guy who did good in 2024 and then draft who could be a successor, or even just have someone there. Because let's also be honest, are the Steelers, like, they're not known for the big time trades? Would they, like, I don't know. I could see a scenario where they give Fields a 1-year extension, but it's obviously not going to be big money.
So just to give you further, the top 4 or 5 guys who are potential quarterbacks this upcoming year are not guys that are like the big name guys. It's Carson Beck out of Georgia. It's Shador Sanders. It's Uagale, the kid from Oregon State, who is a Clemson transfer.
What about Quinn Ewers?
Quinn Ewers could be there, but it's questionable because again, he might not play that much if Arch Manning supplants him in Texas. Riley Leonard, the Duke transfer to Notre Dame, and then I think Noah Fafita, who went from Arizona somewhere else.
God,
so it's not a good quarterback class at all. So again, we're saying this right now in May. Come November, one of those guys could win the Heisman. So and then might be the guy. So there's a possibility there. I would think that it's based upon if the Steelers have a winning season and make the playoffs because of Justin Fields. I think yes, you give him that. If he hasn't thrown for over 3,000 yards in his entire NFL career, to Justin's point about him not being a great quarterback, and to Justin's point, as a Bears fan, I forgot about Tyson Bagent last year, who came in and was just like a star for two weeks.
As a former Bears fan,
the original Tommy DeVito, Tyson Bagent. But yeah, if Justin Fields supplants Russell Wilson early enough that he can actually form a good offensive run and get the Steelers into promising territory, then sure. But I don't know. I think this is a 1 year like bridge year to reset. I feel like the Steelers are probably going to go quarterback in the 25 NFL draft, but I don't see a need or a reason to keep Wilson or Fields on this roster for much longer than the 1 year unless Fields performs well. Because let's be honest here, it ain't gonna be Russell Wilson.
Sure. All right, boys. With your permission, I want to go a bit out of order here on the picks because to me, the next
denied.
No,
denied.
Okay. All right. 12 overall.
we
were joking. You can go out of order.
Yeah, because I think of the next set of names. There's 2 guys that I think we could have some real discussion about in terms of who got accepted. Maybe third in terms of who got declined, but no, because there's some names coming up here where it's like we're going to see what the decision was and be like, yeah, no, it's clear cut. There was no reason to, because 12th and 14th, I think are worth the talking because it's Micah Parsons and Elijah Vera Tucker, and I mentioned Elijah Vera Tucker because these are 2 Jets fans here. So let's go out of order here real quick. And I'll just say these names in rapid fire, and you boys could pick out anything from this quick set. Again, I'm going to go out of order here. 13th overall pick was Rashawn Slater. No doubt in my mind that they were going to pick that up. He's been phenomenal so far in his career. Was it last season or the season before where he got hurt and basically came back at the end of the season to still try to give them a snowball's chance in hell of having some kind of success?
I think it was last season. Yeah,
it was last season. So Rashawn Slater, he's proving he's a warrior. He's great. Hopefully, there's no issues, long-term ramifications with his injury. But Rashawn Slater has been phenomenal to say the very least. And it's just, I think he's going to be left tackle. I think Joel's probably going to be right tackle. I don't know.
I do not. I would not. I do not.
You think it's going to flip? You think it's
I do not like that if I'm the Chargers. I think you got to put Alt at left tackle.
Left tackle.
Here's the problem. Here's my thing about picking this up. Now you have 2 left tackles basically because Slater never played right tackle.
Didn't Alt play right tackle in college?
No, he was left. I'm pretty sure he was left. Yeah,
I'm sure he was a right tackle. I'm pretty sure they drafted him to play right tackle.
I think he was left straight on because I look again. You kind of have 2 guys that can play the same. I don't believe he was a right tackle. If he was, then I retract my point. But I don't believe he was. I believe he was left. So but it's not a natural position for a guy who's a left tackle to move to right. So if Slater is left and Alt was right, fine. But if they were both left tackles coming out of college, what I think they were,
I'm seeing that he played left tackle from true freshman year. So
Joe Alt,
yeah.
So that's where I find it a little sketchy because again, like.
Unless you make one of them, it would probably have to be Slater. But unless you turn him into a left guard,
no,
no, you keep him at tackle,
probably.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I understand the option pickup for Slater, and I would agree with it. But then that leads me to say, why are you bringing Alt into the discussion then as another left tackle? It's like a left tackle and then a left tackle.
So do you think that maybe they picked up the option so that just for 2 years they'll have a great tackle combo, but there are no plans to extend Slater? Do you think this could be a case where 5th year picked up but no extension, Rick?
But will you is the question. What if Slater moves to right tackle and he bombs? You know,
I don't know if he'll bond.
left tackle to right tackle is not an easy transition.
Oh, I'm not saying it is or isn't. Like I'm not
Yeah.
saying it is going to be simple,
But
but I'm
that's
just
the
saying
thing,
like
what-
I don't think he'll be. I don't think he'll be.
I don't think it'd be terrible. But what if the production's not there? You know, what if they were like,
I think well, not the Chargers, but I think an educated NFL team would be like, hey, this guy was really good at left tackle. Let's make him our left tackle and not our right tackle.
I mean, you would think that, right?
You know? Also, let's be fair. Orlando Brown was Jr. Was the right tackle in Baltimore for a couple years, and was left tackle in Kansas City, and then left tackle in Cincinnati. So the transition, and I know that's right tackle to left tackle, but I'm just saying, like, a guy can be on one side of the line and go to the other. Now, maybe it's because Orlando Brown Jr., like, he probably expected to be left tackle, but when he got drafted, obviously, by the Ravens, because he wasn't a high pick. I think he was a second or third rounder.
Yeah.
So there was some development there, and he was a right tackle. He wanted to become the left tackle, but we know that wasn't going to be the case because Ronnie Stanley was there. So I don't know. Again, I do think it's still a smart move that they ultimately picked it up, but it's going to be a very interesting, like, jigsaw puzzle of a offensive line for the Chargers to have to figure out. You have two amazing tackles. How you're going to play them, I'm not saying this because I don't think Rashawn Slater is great, but I could see a scenario where the Chargers are going to see if they could put Alt at left tackle.
See, now you have me envisioning a world where Jim Harbaugh plays Jigsaw in the Saw movie franchise. Who's a jigsaw puzzle.
Right.
That's the worst movie I've ever seen.
All right. Let me skip a little bit more. 16th overall, Arizona Cardinals. They didn't pick up the fifth-year option on Zaven Collins. I'm not surprised at all. Some of these guys that the Cardinals drafted late 2010s, early 2020s, or early 2020s, aside from the quarterback, like, they just haven't worked out in Arizona. But at least Hassan Reddick worked out outside of Arizona.
Well, yeah.
Isaiah Simmons is no longer on the team. We'll see if he can work out a new spot in his new home, like, definitively. And Zaven Collins, he's just one of these guys that, again, came out with some potential. And I think there was hope that the Cardinals, for the Cliff Kingsbury era, when they drafted these defensive players, they kept drafting defensive players that you could play them in multiple spots in the field. Isaiah Simmons was a guy that in college he played on all three levels to an extent. And they tried that with him in his career. Zaven Collins was a guy that not all three levels, but between linebacker and defensive end, I think more linebacker personally, but irregardless, he was a little bit of both. He had some pass rush production in college. At some point, you need to take a player. Yes, I know he's unique, but you need to take a player and you need to, hunker him down in one spot to be the best possible. And in certain packages, you could maybe be unique. And okay, Isaiah Simmons is our one of our linebackers, but in certain sets, he could help with the pass rush. Like, same with Zaven Collins. It just felt like Arizona, they had all these toys and they just pick and chose when to use them. I think Zaven Collins is a case of just a team that didn't know how to use. Same with Isaiah Simmons. Team didn't know how to use them. So I'm not surprised that it was a no for the pickup. It's solid kid. Maybe could have been better elsewhere. I think he went to the wrong situation, honestly. I don't think they knew how to put him in the best situation possible to succeed.
I think he got hurt mid-season last year, but the year prior he had 100 tackles.
That's it.
So he's honestly, you know what? This is the best thing for him because get the hell out of Arizona.
And if he comes back and he plays great, like I think there's a chance he could be one of these guys that earns a contract extension from the Cardinals if he just has a banger of the 2024 season. So we'll see. Alex Leatherwood was drafted 17th overall. Because he got cut, he was ineligible for the fifth-year option. Wouldn't have mattered because he's a free agent. And
he was awful too.
That kid, you know what? If he wanted to sue Mike Mayock and John Gruden for career for killing his career, I would support him because those guys, he shouldn't have been 17.
He made a lot more money than he probably would have if he did not. If he was drafted later.
Yeah.
Throwing it out there.
Yeah.
All right. Miami Dolphins picked up Jalen Phillips. That's another team, boys, that actually had multiple first-round picks because you mentioned the Steelers, Rick. There's another team, Jalen Phillips. Again, honestly, to me, this is almost like the Jalen Waddle thing of like they have to figure out Tua before they figure out the rest of this team. Now, Jalen Phillips unfortunately went down with a rough injury to end last season. I think he's ready. I think they said he'll be ready to start this year. Maybe he might miss the first week or two, but he'll play a majority of 2024, hopeful health-wise. And if he puts together a really strong season, like I see why they picked up the fifth-year option because this kid has shown really great flashes, and him healthy next to Bradley Chubb for a full season, double-digit sack consistency potential easily. So no qualms there. And then just so I could get through the rest of the quick hitters here, Kadarius Toney and Jamin Davis both didn't get picked up. Not really surprised. Jamin Davis has been fine for the Commanders, but he's nothing special. He's a good player, but he's not a great player. Maybe he could get extended after this year, but I don't blame them for not picking up the fifth-year option. Kadarius Toney. There. And then Kwity Paye, 21st overall pick, got picked up. show again flashes, some potential. This was actually one of the guys that like his 5th-year option was exercised May 2nd. So on the deadline itself, the Colts really had to take their time with this one. Again, maybe he shows some flashes this year. Maybe he takes those flashes and puts a consistent 2024. I think that's a guy that you're gonna hope plays at the level that you're picking up that 5th-year option for. Because I mean, granted, $13.3 million, not a world ender, but you hope for a little bit more out of Quiddy Pay for his career. So we got up to the 21st overall pick. So the 3 guys that I skipped over real quick. Let's go back in reverse order. Mac Jones, 15th overall, option was declined. Again, honestly, almost a similar conversation to Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. God, this league was bad, boys? Look, he made a Pro Bowl. He's one of those 9 Pro Bowlers from this draft class. He made a Pro Bowl, 1. And that's it. Long-term future of Mac Jones, boys. What do you think?
Offensive coordinator at the University of Alabama.
Okay. But Nick Saban's not there anymore.
No, yeah, exactly. Or not offensive assistant.
Okay.
Like starting with like a PA job and then working way up from there.
All right,
Not like you, jerk.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe he's got to start as an intern. Actually, what I was.
Oh
for
yeah,
for
yep. Give me some coffee, kid.
Which is amazing. Rick only ever made me get coffee for him one time.
That's true.
So
I did need it that day, though.
Did you ever make Justin get a coffee for you when he interned?
No.
My internship was special.
Justin was interning for credit. You were interning for I don't know what reason.
Vibes.
Yeah, vibes.
I did it for no college credit and no money whatsoever.
Exactly.
Oh God, America. Justin, Mac Jones. Does Mac Jones, in all seriousness, is Mac Jones like a backup quarterback in this league for a bit of time? Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, at least a few years. I wouldn't be surprised. Look, he's got starting experience. He's got playoff experience. He's got experience playing for one of the better coaches in the history of the NFL, maybe the greatest coach of all time. I'm not going to make the distinction because I hate him. But he's got a lot of things that they look for in veteran presence. And he's going to have to mature a little bit, obviously. And he's going to have to learn to, help his starter and the guys in front of him and bring a sort of leadership to the locker room. But yeah, there's no reason why he shouldn't be a backup quarterback, at least for a second contract.
Yeah. And he's in Jacksonville. And honestly, we saw with Trevor Lawrence when he's hurt, they need a good backup quarterback. Why not another former first-round pick?
Yeah.
It's something. I think Mac Jones, funny enough, I think he'll get a contract extension to be a backup quarterback. I think you're going to get the Trevor Lawrence deal and the Mac Jones deal. One obviously being a lot more than the other, to say the very least. All right, my Jets fans. Elijah Vera Tucker's 5th-year option was picked up. Doesn't surprise me, but both your thoughts on each of that. Justin first.
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting one to me also because as much as he's been the best lineman they've had for a number of years, he's played multiple positions for them. He's been excellent. He's also coming off 2 season-ending injuries. Both happened in Denver. And at least it's not a recurring injury, but they've been disappointing because he's been so good when he's on the field. And it's not something he can help. I'm not blaming him. I'm not trying to say, but like you've seen guys have their option not picked up for less. So it's an interesting move. I think he's their guard of the future. He is excellent for their depth. They love the fact that he's so athletic. They love the fact that he can play multiple positions on that offensive line in a pinch. I mean, when he played tackle, I don't think he gave up a sack. He played tackle for like 4 games. I don't think he gave up. Did he not even give up a pressure? He was excellent for them at tackle, left tackle, I believe. So, yeah, look, I would have picked it up as well. I think it was a good move for the Jets. I got my fingers crossed. Hopefully this kid can stay healthy, and hopefully this line can stay healthy and protect the skeleton of Aaron Rodgers.
Well, also, I think it's very interesting because, like you said, Justin, he's kind of been a Swiss Army knife for you guys, and he's had to do that because of injuries around him. Like like you mentioned, health for him is obviously number one, but I also think for secondary would just be the health of the line around him, because I think if from his perspective, it's great to show that you can do so many different things, but at some point you want to be able to hunker down at one specific spot to show your excellence, so you could get that long-term contract.
Well,
Like,
I
I
think
think
that's also why they drafted Olu Fashanu, because that really, really now gives them a lot more depth at the tackle position, which
Mhm.
has been the quote unquote problem position for them.
Yeah.
Becton was decent when he was on the field, especially early on in his career, but he was almost never on the field.
Yeah.
And that's why it was a scary proposition for them to extend Vera Tucker, because I mean I don't want to say he's got more playing time. I honestly don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but he's been on the field for consistent stretches and then off. It's not like he was on and off the way Becton was, but he did miss a number of games in his career so far. So,
Yeah. Vera Tucker played 28 games and started all 28 games so far. Becton started 30 of 31 in his career. So it's around even, I think. You're right there.
Well, one of
And
those guys has been in the league for 4 years as well.
that's true. And Becton also had 8 false start penalties, so I'm not said that he's not going to be on my team anymore. Great. No, Justin's right. I mean, drafting Olu Fashanu was huge because it keeps Vera Tucker in that guard spot with Wes Schweitzer and Xavier Newman Simpson and all those other guys that are there. And you know what the good thing is too? Denver's coming to MetLife this year. No, not going to Denver this season. So therefore, can't get injured 3 years in a row in Denver. That's great. That's what we want.
Well,
Yeah.
considering that MetLife turf and the bad luck against the Broncos,
But it's not Denver.
But it's
Elijah
still the
Vera Tucker
MetLife
in the
turf.
state of Colorado is a no-go. The next time that the Jets go to Colorado, leave Vera Tucker off the plate.
Just move it off week.
Yeah. Sorry, kid. You got to go play Santa Claus at Xanadu in the mall over there. You can't come with us to the game. Sorry, but I thought it was the right move. I mean, look, when he's on, he's phenomenal, and that's hard for me to say as a guy who hates USC first-round draft picks, as you well know. But when he's on, he's phenomenal. And as Justin said, guard of the future, you need him to be at his highest level. You need him out there to protect the husk that is Aaron Rodgers, the ayahuasca that is Aaron Rodgers, So
he's a husk and a skeleton.
Yes.
All right. And back to the main pick that I had skipped because I think this is probably going to be the last first rounder that warrants a lot of discussion about him. Only because of the team he's on. Dallas Cowboys, Micah Parsons picked up the 5th-year option. It's not necessarily surprising at all. The thing that was interesting that I saw was that they designated him with the linebacker 5th-year option, whereas with his sack production, it's also defensive lineman. Micah Parsons is one of these guys who's actually played at different levels, but has mastered that craft unlike certain players because he is so good. That was something I read. It's still a very good chunk of change he's getting because of the success he's had, because of the accolades, because of the playing time. Well, he's still over $20 million for his 5th-year option. So Mike Parsons is getting paid no matter what. I think my only thing to bring here is we know the easy answer. Yes, Micah Parsons should get his long-term extension. It's Jerry Jones. Now, former Cowboy players have always said Jerry Jones loves his guys. If he's all in on you, he's going to take care of you. And I do believe that. I think just in general, like, people take care of their people. I believe Micah Parsons is shown to the point where he probably is one of Jerry Jones's guys. I think it will get done, but I've seen little bits and pieces, and nothing I would take seriously. But, do you guys think there is just a speck of doubt that the 5th year, like, should I say this? Will Micah Parsons get a contract extension before the start of this next season, before the start of the regular season? Do you guys think so?
I think you have to, because look who's coming up the pipeline. You got to figure out long-term deals for Prescott and CeeDee Lamb if you want to keep them around too. So why not take care of one guy? Because if you don't take care of Parsons and you have all 3 at once, that's an insane juggling act even for Jerry Jones to worry about. So I think you have to, before the season, get the long-term deal with Micah Parsons done.
Agreed. You don't want to be wasting, and not that it would be a waste, but you don't want to be wasting your franchise tag on a guy that you think can get done.
Yeah, and also a guy that, like, you shouldn't bother with the franchise tag because he should just be on a long-term deal.
I mean, look, you want to look at how great the stats were. That's fine, but like, he's not a stat guy anymore. He's just a guy that they are required to game plan for, and he's the reason why everyone on Dallas can be a superstar, so to speak. You know what I mean? He's the reason that defense has all these players that are like, wow, look at all these plays that they're making. That's crazy. It's because that they're game planning so hard for Micah Parsons that somebody else is available to step up. If you got to put two tackles on Micah Parsons, or 2 linemen, on Micah Parsons to stop him from blitzing and getting your quarterback, that frees up another guy to get a sack. If you say Micah Parsons drop back into coverage on the left side of the field, and you're saying, all right, I'm not going to throw that way in the intermediary route, there's a guy on the right side of the field that's willing to make plays. You can game plan your defense, and offenses have to game plan to find out where Micah Parsons is.
Yep.
Just a fact.
Yep.
So whether or not you're seeing the stats or the production that you think that he's capable of doing, his presence makes a difference.
Yeah.
And therefore, you need to keep him. And you need to say, all right, it's not worth putting him up against some of my superstar offensive players that have kept us going as well.
Right. Yeah. I feel like part of the reason is just worth like not questioning necessarily, but wondering about it's because like we know now that Dak's contract is reaching, closer to its end, of course. And people have been talking about that and what they're going to do with that. And of course, we know when quarterback contracts come up, you have to talk about the rest of the roster and who's going to get paid and this, that, and the third. But I think no matter what the decision with Dak is, like Parsons needs to be the guy that they keep above all. Like, they cut Michael Gallup before the start of this offseason to free up some cap space. And I've got to feel that part of the reason is if you're playing for that long-term Michael Parsons deal, you can't have just all these wide receivers that are taking the money because I think did CeeDee Lamb get paid yet or no? Was he a year after this draft class, right? So you have to plan for that extension as well. So it's a myriad of things, but I think we're all in agreement. It should happen. But I think probably it's a timing of it. And that's why my question was more framed of will he get signed before the start of 2024? Or will it be a case where, because remember, this is 3 years in. So now with the fifth year, you have 2 years left on this deal. Is it a case where they wait for 2024 to play out? And it's not because of Parsons. Again, this maybe ties into, funny enough, the conversations we had about the wide receivers or even Jalen Phillips when it comes to the Dolphins. But is this more they're trying to figure out the long-term future at quarterback, and then they can make the decisions on how much they give Micah and then extending CD? I don't know. There's a bunch of different I think there's multiple factors that have to do with when Parsons gets his contract. I don't think his level of play is an issue at all. I think we could all agree with that.
Well, I think, too, also that in the case of Parsons, he's a guy that, for better or for worse, hangs around that Defensive Player of the Year conversation. And so if you wait until the end of this season, let's say, and he wins Defensive Player of the Year, you think he's going to ask for a lot more money because he's won an award and he's a significant, like an all-pro, and those bonuses might kick in for whatever contract he's trying to get to. And again, that could hamper your long-term thing because this is a guy who wants to get paid a ton of money. This is a guy who, not saying he's selfish because the man deserves it, but he's looking out for himself, and that's totally fine. But at the same time, you do this deal now, you lock him in to a certain deal with the incentivized bonuses that he's going to hit. You can kind of then offset that and work around all of that. I think that's because, again, if it was any other player, I would say you could get away with waiting. But Parsons, is going to be hanging around that conversation. Like Justin said, he's not a stats guy, but he's an impact player on all sides of the field on defense. So I think you get it done.
And he's also a guy where you can extend him 5 years now, and he'll just barely be 30 years old by the time that extension kicks in. So then you should pay. And by the way, because I mentioned before, I had switched around what the case was. The Cowboys picked up his fifth-year option with designating him as a defensive end, not a linebacker, which saved them nearly $3 million.
Right.
So that was the thing with the designation earlier that I mentioned, which I don't know. Is that – I don't think Micah Parsons would take that and be upset because, A, still a lot of money, and B, I think he'll want to sign long-term no matter what. But this is kind of one of those things where in not just the Cowboys, but in other things past, when teams designate guys one position over the other to save some money, that creates at least a slight bit of tension. I don't think that'll affect anything here, but I just wanted to make note of that because that has played a role in the past of negotiations breaking down.
I mean, but it's not incorrect. I mean, yes, in his first season, he played 55% of his snaps at linebacker, but in the last 2 years, he is lined up on the defensive end of the ball 80% plus. So he's transitioned into that. It's a surprise based upon, what you think of him as, but when you look at the alignment of the snaps he's taken, he's been on the front, he's on the front line pretty much the entire game, entire season. So
well, his agent may have said something about that. Anyways, all right. Let's go to the end of the first round here. Let's finish off the first round, and I think we could just rapid fire some of these names. I don't think any of these guys will take too much conversation. Just be very quick here. All right, Caleb Farley didn't get his fifth-year option picked up by the Tennessee Titans. It's the Tennessee Titans. I don't have too much to say about it. Hope the kid can prove himself, but it's kind of here nor there.
You're on the Titans. What do you expect?
Yeah. Christian Darrisaw of the Minnesota Vikings did get his 5th-year option picked up. He's been solid so far for Minnesota. I think he was a solid pick overall. I think they're just waiting for him. I mean, it's hard to say with offensive linemen waiting for them to break out, right? Like good offensive linemen, like you. How do I put this? I feel like of most positions, offensive lineman is a spot where if a guy is just good, you're cool with keeping him for the long term because it's not a guarantee that the replacement is going to be at a higher level, right? So Darrisaw is a guy that he's played fine for Minnesota so far. I definitely think it makes sense to pick up the 5th-year option. What his long-term future is, it could be with the Vikings or it could not be. I could see a case in 2 years where he just leaves because they choose to reset the clock themselves. So that's their pejorative, but I don't have any disagreements with picking up the 5th-year option. I think he's been pretty good so far. So there's that. Pittsburgh Steelers. Najee Harris, they declined the 5th-year option. So Rick mentioned the trend earlier. They just don't give the 5th-year option to the guy. Now, my one argument would be that his 5th-year option would have been for less than $7 million. Now, I know you hear $7 million for running back, and you think, how dare they? Running backs don't exist. What is $7 million for one? This is probably one of the few. Look, I'm a running back guy. I like the running backs. I'll stick up for the running backs. It doesn't surprise me that the Steelers aren't picking it up because the very next selection was Travis Etienne and the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they did pick up his 5th-year option. So I don't know. I get again Steelers way. Oh my God, so glorious! This organization hasn't accomplished anything in 15 plus years. But I think I can understand the Steelers' MO of not picking it up. But I would also say like a guy who has been screwed over by the lack of offensive line that you've built for him so far in his career. Not picking up the 5th-year option, that's, again, sub $7 million. Come on, but it's whatever.
I think ETN was a favor to Trevor Lawrence because that's his boy. You know, they came out of college together. I think that was kind of more of a favor because he's been injured, but he's still a good enough player. The thing with Najee Harris is that Jalen Warren last year showed out really, really well as an undrafted running back for them. I think he had almost 800 yards in the backfield. I think that kind of resets it a little bit because yes, Najee Harris had 1,000 yards, but there were games where he didn't show up, and Jalen Warren was more the guy. So I can understand that if that's the idea you want to take, that you'd rather see if Jalen Warren can continue to progress and be an undrafted, a diamond in the rough. I can understand if that's your logic.
Travis Etienne, by the way, while he did miss his rookie season because of injury, back-to-back 1,000-yard campaigns the last 2 years with 16 total touchdowns just on the ground. So I think it's a little bit more than just a favor. I think he's actually played a bit well.
But again, he's a running back, and what is that in this league today?
Apparently. Justin, your thoughts on the 2 running backs?
Yeah, it's extending running backs is tough. I mean, the idea is you want to get him under contract for the cheapest amount that you can because in theory that you're going to just draft another one at a lower date later on in the year. I mean, it made sense to me that Najee Harris was declined because of his health, and he's been on a steady decline in the career so far. Unfortunately for him, we all know that he's got potential to be a great running back in this league, but just hasn't been there. And maybe it's partially because the Steelers haven't really had a strong passing game, but the fact is he hasn't really produced. So it makes sense in terms of Pittsburgh. And in Jacksonville, it's been the opposite. I mean, he started off a little bit slow. He really came on. He's been excellent in terms of the production that he's had. He's been excellent in terms of giving Trevor Lawrence that safety net. And I think it makes a lot of sense to keep him on for now and see where he goes. I mean, staying healthy now for these next 2 years is the most important thing for Travis Etienne. I mean, obviously you want to produce and when you want to be a solid player, but if he's not staying healthy, he's not getting that extension. He'll be on another team in 2 years, after 2 years.
Potentially both of these guys will be
It'll probably be less. What?
Well, potentially both of these guys could be on different teams within the next 2 years.
Yeah, well, Najee Harris probably sooner.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting to see also if they decline his option and he has like a monster year this year, do they franchise tag him?
See, this is why. And look, I'm gonna defend Najee Harris here real quick because I don't want to. 3 straight 1,000 yard seasons rushing and 22 total touchdowns on the ground behind one of let's be real here. This is one of the worst put together total offensive lines in football the last 2 years. Like they're not a great offensive line. You ask Steelers fans, they don't like the offensive line situation. The fact that he is one of the guys in this league that suffers the most in terms of contact happening to him from the line of scrimmage. He's one of the guys that they get to him the quickest because there's no offensive line. So, and they've had no quarterback. So I hope Najee Harris does honestly pop off for a great season and that he hopefully should get paid, but he won't get paid because they'll franchise tag him.
He's had decent stats in terms of, he's had 1,000 yards and like 7 touchdowns each year. But realistically, they've had other guys that have stepped up for him in his absence.
Well, hold on. Absence is being like he's played all 17 games over the last 3 years. He's played every single game, but sometimes he has to leave because again, the defense gets to him. He's one of like the 5 running backs who the defenses hit him quickest because they get to him the quickest because that offensive line is bad.
He's not missing games, but he's always banged up. There's always some sort of issue. I mean, if you remember, I think last season he played 8 games with a steel plate in his shoe.
Yeah,
and he couldn't cut.
But is that on him or is that the team just
if you're not healthy? Sit out, man. It is on you to an extent. It is on you to an extent because if you can't play and you're showing, all right, like I think the first 6 or 7 games last year, he was averaging like 30, 40 yards a game. Like he was not good. If you need to sit out to get yourself right to prove that you're a top guy, I would rather sit out 3 games and be electric for 14 than be mediocre for like 8 or 9 games and then have to really come on towards the end.
But we know how the Steelers work. If you are not one of the guys that they have a lot of favor in, if you choose to sit out those games, you're in the doghouse for that team. That's just a fact. I don't
necessarily know if it's a choice either. I mean, obviously he was healthy enough to play and he got cleared, which is always a questionable thing in the NFL in my mind. But if you have to play with a steel plate in your shoe and you can't do all the things that you normally would do, I get that you're trying to be there for your team, but you also have to do what's best for you. And being the best player you can be, if that means sitting out, like I said, 2-3 games to make sure that you get right, and when you come back, you could be 100-yard touchdown and a half per game, Najee Harris, as opposed to 30 yards a game and 7 touchdowns. He's averaging 7 touchdowns a year. That's not terrible, but it's not top running back production. It's just not. And they specifically brought him in because he's that power back that they wanted to get in the end zone, especially in goal line situations. And now they've kind of reverted that to oh my God, I can't even remember.
Jaylen Warren?
Who?
Jaylen Warren?
Yeah. So, and I understand that it's hard for a running back, and realistically, they don't last much longer than this because it's such a tough position. But you have to take, if you're the team, you have to do what's best for the team, not the individual. And if Najee Harris keeps getting banged up and he's going to be that 40-yard a game running back as opposed to that 100-yard a game running back, and you have Jaylen Warren and you have guys that you've drafted that are coming up behind him that are showing promise, why are you paying him?
There's showing promise, and then there's putting that promise consistently on the field.
Well, you can't put it on the field if you're paying Najee Harris $8 million a game, $10 million not a game, a season.
I was going to say a game.
To be the starter, you're giving him the reps.
Not to mention also the Steelers picked up Cordero Patterson this offseason as well. So,
but Najee, look, I know, and again, I understand that no matter what, the league is not going to change from this. You get the running backs at the cheapest you can. I get that. If I was running a team, I would do it in the same way.
You get every position at the cheapest you can. They're just the other positions aren't as cheap.
But at the end of the day, at some point, we need to make the distinction of there is a talent discrepancy between the best at a position, the best at other. Yes, running backs can come in and they can surprise you for a stretch of games, and they could put up 80, 90, 100-plus yards in a row. I know Jaylen Warren has shown it. He is not more talented than Najee Harris. Cordero Patterson is not more talented than Najee Harris. He's more versatile. You can put him in receiver. You can make him your kicker punt returner. I understand that. I'm not going to disagree there. But he's not more talented. And at some point, you either pay the talent you have or you don't. And it's totally fine that we want to say they don't. Again, it's cool, whatever. But I don't want to hear Najee Harris hasn't done his job when with the I guess I'll put in the swear jar. The dog shit quarterback play that they've had there for the last 3 years.
Whoa!
Matt Canada, garbage offensive coordinator. When I can't say baseball because, no, maybe some Pirates games. But when at Pirates and Penguins games, other sports in your city, they're randomly chanting "Fire Canada." Not good.
They were chanting that because they were playing the Toronto Blue Jays and Raptors, dude. Come on, man.
No, they weren't. I was at the Chicago Blackhawk game.
Well, what if I told you that there's a little rumor going around too that's kind of been debunked, but it's still kind of out there that it was Najee Harris himself who told the Steelers to decline the 5th-year option? What would you say about that?
Because he probably doesn't trust his long-term future there.
All right, so then there you go. If he says don't give me the option, then there you go.
Which is totally fine. But now I'm saying this just in general in this league. Like when the running backs say that there's an issue in the league, and we're like, what do you mean there's an issue in the league? Yes, there is. They're the ones that are getting screwed over the most.
Look, I'm not saying that there's not an issue in terms of paying running backs. Realistically, a lot of them deserve more money than what they're making. But that being said, it is such a fragile position that it makes sense for teams not to pay. Like, of course, it's an issue, but that doesn't mean that there's a fix. And your argument that Najee Harris should have been better. Look at this. Might not be a fair comparison, but there's another bruising running back who had, according to you guys, a horrible quarterback the majority of his career. Offensive line issues. He's always banged up. His offensive coordinator has not been great. He go back and forth. And meanwhile, King Derrick Henry is rushing and dominating the league. Okay. Maybe it's not a fair comparison.
I was about to say, wait, I feel like I've said this about a dozen.
I was thinking, wait, Saquon Barkley? We're talking about him now?
But the point is, he's performed. He's been excellent. I wouldn't compare. I think Saquon's a kind of a different model than that. But
Rick,
yes.
Were you the one that I was also thinking the Spider-Man cartoon meme? Do you know how little you are narrowing down it right now? I feel like I've criticized so many teams for that.
These guys, and they've performed better. The point is, you thought of so many different guys with that description, and they've performed better than Najee Harris. And I'm not saying Najee Harris is not bad. He's definitely a top 15 running back in my mind, and has the potential to be a top 5 running back if he can really I mean, maybe it's a team issue, but if he can really get his stuff together and really perform for a full season, because he's been notoriously slow at starting. He's not been the guy that we thought he was going to be when they drafted him in the first round. Just hasn't.
Listen, I'm going to end off with the fact that I think Najee, Saquon, and Derrick Henry are on 3 different claims, but the one thing they can be is part of the tortured running backs department. Hi, Taylor.
Oh, Lord.
So there you go. But no, look, yes.
I was about to say, that's our transition to the rest of the names.
But, again,
if we could do a 2-hour episode on fighting about running backs.
If he declined it himself.
Wait, what'd you say, Justin? I did not hear you.
So we could do a 2-hour episode fighting about running backs.
We could.
Yeah.
We could. But we shouldn't. Because,
all right. Last
if the owners don't care, why should we?
Let's not get into a conversation. We could do a 2-hour episode about this roasting owners. All right. Greg Newsome II, 5th-year option picked up. Rashad Bateman declined. They declined the 5th-year option. They just didn't pick it up, but they did give him a 2-year extension.
Yeah.
Peyton Turner, I believe the 5th-year option did not get picked up on him.
Declined.
Eric Stokes did not get the 5th-year option. Gregory Rousseau did get the 5th-year option. Odafe Owe. I think I got it. 5th-year option picked up. And the last pick of the first round, Joe Tryon, did not get his 5th-year option picked up. So that is the rest of it. So a corner in Greg Newsome. I think he's been solid so far for the Cleveland Browns. Picked up. See, it could not. It's fine. And then the 2 defensive linemen at the end there. Owe, I think there's a chance that they're definitely hoping that they can work that magic that they've been doing on some of their recent guys. I think they're hoping for a Matt Judon type breakout. I think the Ravens would love that if they get lucky enough. I don't know if I'm not saying he is a Matt Judon archetype player, but I think they mean for that kind of breakout from him. And if they are able to have him under, because I have the exact number here, and it doesn't name a linebacker to be fair, but a little over $13 million. So maybe more, like if they get a mix of a Judon Patrick Queen type thing, if they get him for 7 sacks and 100+ tackles, it's a pretty good deal for the Ravens. And then Gregory Rousseau, he's been progressing so far. He's one of the guys that skipped out in the 2020 season. He's been good, and he might even get better. I think there's still another level to see of Gregory Rousseau's game, which I know the 2 Jets fans in here are not happy about that to potentially hear that. So any last Anything to say about the last, what was it, 6 or 7 names I hollered off there, boys? Or shall we get to the finale of the show?
I mean, I didn't realize that half these guys were still in the league, to be honest with you. When you're drafted this low in the first round, you're kind of just forgotten about in a way. But Russo was at one point a top 4 prospect,
Yeah.
but that's when he was a sophomore and he stayed in Miami a couple years too long. So I think they kind of hurt him in the college run. But good player, deserved it. Owe, good player, deserved it, I suppose. The rest, couldn't pick him out of a lineup like Tucker Fisk.
Couldn't pick him out of a lineup. All right. Well, with that being said, guys, we are here at the end of the show. And it's time. Oh, man, it's time for the return of one of the most popular segments in show history. Probably the most popular segment in show history. Guys, it's the return of Rant and Rick's Roast from Podium. We will take a step back. Rick, finish off the show. Is this the first Rant Podium in the new season?
It's quite a while.
It feels like it's been a while.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was the Rant promo that I did on Justin with the chicken trophy, so there was that. But yeah. All right. Honorable mention here. New York Knicks Celebrity Row. To me, a celebrity has to be somebody that warrants conversation as to a popular figure. And I'm sorry, but if you align Ben Stiller and Chris Rock and Spike Lee with Ice Spice, you've lost all credibility. Ice Spice is not a celebrity to me. Like, I don't even know what you are, but just go away. Number 3 for me, I want to talk about the NBA MVP voting. So I think we need an overhaul in this voting. I think that if you're a player that hasn't gotten Defensive Player of the Year votes or Offensive Player of the Year votes, you shouldn't be considered for NBA MVP. And anybody who tries to circumnavigate the system needs to be fired and lose their vote. Why the hell is Kevin Durant getting a 5th place vote for MVP when Devin Booker's not getting a vote at all? Like, what logic is that? That Kevin Durant and James Jones is going to say, well, did you see he played 75 games? Did you fire your head coach because Kevin Durant wanted him fired? That's not an MVP to me. That's go the hell away heat is what that is for Kevin Durant. I've been trying to get rid of him for a while. I thought he'd been still the MS with Brunei. Like Biden. Where the hell's that a promo appointment? Like, get Kevin Durant out of my league, please. Thank you very much.
Kevin Durant has more heat than all of AEW.
He does. Number 2 on my list, I want to keep it to social media. There's a feud going on. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's I like to liken this as Kendrick La Who Gives a Crap versus Yawnbree Drake Graham. I don't care. I don't care. Like I don't care. I can't tell you what this is about. All I know about Drake is that he got shot in the back in an episode of Degrassi, and that's really it. Like, that's all I know and all I care to know about the guy. Like, that's all I care. He's Jimmy Brooks to me. That's all he'll ever be. Like, I don't care. My life is so much better not knowing anything about this feud, and I'm going to keep it that way. But that leads me to number 1, which is stupid Instagram trends. Because, as you know, I hate social media with a burning passion. And there are 3 on this list. So this is a 1A, 1B, 1C. 1A, any Instagram account that is literally just farming engagement, that is just posting the same video every day, and the account is called This Video Daily. Like, that is the base level barometer of stupid. All right? That is just lazy, and it is stupid. And if I see that account, I have a fun thing where I block accounts now on Instagram because it's fun to me. And daily posts and daily stuff like that, I literally put, this post made me uncomfortable. Why? Because I saw it yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. And I'd see it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Like, no, stop it. 1B, the stupid Instagram trend that is people walking along wherever, and you have someone behind the camera say, like pick me girls almost, like, he's this, where? He's this, where? He's this, where? You're never going to find him because it's not what you're looking for anyways. So stop it. Like, have better standards for yourself, women of the world today, I think. And then number 1A for me, The other really stupid trend that whenever I see it, I immediately block it, and I think you should too, is that stupid fighting trend with the Blue Monday song from Wonder Woman. I don't know if you've seen it, where it's like the two people are having like an argument about something, and it's just like, I want this, but I want this. Do 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 do. It's an earworm. And whenever I see it, I throw my phone across the room. Now, somehow, I've thrown my phone across the room 900 times in the last month and a half. My phone is not broken. So credit to you, Apple. My iPhone, for some reason, is actually really, really good and really, really safe. But the whole point is this. There was a time in our lives when this didn't exist. And we need to go back to that. When it didn't exist.
Fully agree.
Instagram. And you know what? Look, this is also another offshoot. If you're complaining about the ban against TikTok possibly going into effect by saying, oh, it's going to cost me money because I make a lot of things here. There was a time when that wasn't a thing. And there was a time where we had to actually work God's honest jobs to, make money and not just do TikTok videos of you driving your cars or stupid dances or the if your name starts with the letter J, Z, Y, Q. I can't do it on here, but you know what I'm about to show you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm showing you behind this, because 105 episodes into this damn podcast, I'm still the one that hasn't cursed. Unlike the two of you. And apparently JB, who was the sailoriest sailor I've ever seen on Wednesday.
JB let loose. Justin, did you listen to that?
I was like, oh my God in heaven. Fortunately, I wasn't driving by an elementary school, had that on full blast. Otherwise, I would have been like, Mommy, what's that word mean? What is this? Love JB. Stars 1, so I hope that he's doing well, but
oh, dude, they gave him a heart attack.
I know they did. But yeah, listen. Instagram and Twitter, another trend I hate. Name a more iconic duo. Now look between the letters E and C on your keyboard. Yeah. Because you know what happens with that too, right? The minute you pull up your keyboard, that's like an engagement click. It's like, it's like, people, stop being stupid. Stop being stupid. Get off your phones. Go outside. I harken back to my Super Bowl loneliness thing. Go to a bar. Call somebody. Go shoot the breeze with the mailman. If your dog's not going to yell at him, then that's fine. You'll be okay. But there's more things in life and better things in life than reposting stupid trends or videos or clips of movies and not telling us the title. I could just go on a whole rant about things I hate on Instagram, basically, if I wanted to. But
I think all three of us could at this point.
We all could. And the only reason why I have it, obviously, is because I've got, not me personally, but my dog's got 2,000 plus followers because, dog accounts are great, man. I'm interested to see funny dog videos and dog photos. That's fine, because who doesn't love a dog? And if you don't love a dog, then there's a special circle in hell reserved for you, I think. But
and who is in that special circle?
Michael Vick and Chrissy Nome and
Rick. I'm setting you up for the joke. Say Duncan. We know you want to say Duncan.
Oh well. I mean, I was more topical, but sure, yes. Oh yeah. I mean, I drive past it every day, and I took my head on myself, like, how are you still in business? But Duncan sucks. It does. And
Adam Rank probably gets Duncan a lot, right?
Oh my God, he's the worst. He's the worst. I do have to say though, also that I think I realized why I might have a sty in my eye or something like that. I was attacked by Utah last night, and yeah, that gopher's mean, man. I'm not looking forward to this pick challenge this year because that gopher he's a salty person in a hand and a gopher. So it's gonna be a rough one. I may come up on a show with like a bandage over my head because he took a bite out of me once because he's a gopher and he's mean. So yeah,
check back a previous episode to understand what he's talking about, guys. So with that being said, that ends I think the first rant podium of season 3. At least it feels like it. That ends this rant podium, and that ends this edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. It's good that all three of us got to be together for a show again. Check in next week to see if that's going to be the case once again for a back-to-back episode. In all seriousness, guys, keep checking in every single week. We will be back with more content. Now, we've talked about draft. We talked about fifth-year options. I think I said this last week. I don't think there's any more free agency to discuss. I think we'll just mention guys that have signed on come the come preseason and training camp and when we do our division previews. So I think, boys, this is a straight, month and a half for us, give or take. where we could just have shows where we could just talk about whatever NFL-wise we want to do. I think we've been waiting for a stretch of time where we've gotten to do that. So hopefully we'll come up with some fun episodes for us to have a ball with over the next couple of weeks. And be sure to join us for that and the eventual trek back to next season for the division previews, the pick challenge, and all the more here on the Sports Agents of Chaos YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition, and we'll see you guys next week for another bout of fun, football, and chaos.